Welcome into a new BuffStampede Radio. Adam Munsterteiger, the publisher of BuffStampede.com, joined by our football analyst. I like to call him Willie G. Some of you guys like to call him Hoodie William, although he's not Hoodie William today. And again, I think his takes are going to be so rich that folks are going to want to call him Billiam once this podcast hits YouTube and the podcast airwaves. Happy Veterans Day, William. I know that you have served in a couple branches of the military, and so my hats are off to you. My hat is off to you, and everybody else's hats are off as well. Thank you for your service.
No, I appreciate it. I'm wearing them. I was in the Navy and the Marine Corps way back. And I wasn't quite in the Civil War. I'm not quite that old, but a little bit after that. But I don't know if you can see, that's the logo from the last Navy squadron I worked in, VF 301. It's supposed to be a devil holding a pitch. I don't know what the hell it's supposed to be, but I always know we joked about what it looked like, and I'll just leave it at that. But at any rate, I worked on F-14s out of Miramar at Top Gun and things like that, and in the Marine Corps, I was in artillery. So,
yeah, that's about as much red as you can get away with on this podcast, huh?
Yeah. Well, I was saying to you beforehand, I can't wear any of my Marine Corps shirts because they're all bright red. So I get banned and booed off the screen. So,
Share one Top Gun story for us on Veterans Day.
Oh, good. Well, like an F-14 story. Well, okay, I'll tell you one was we for a while I worked on the night shift and we fixed the airplanes, but I was also on the line crew, and we would get the pilots up in the planes and do pre-flight inspections and such. And one time I was out there on the deck of a carrier and went up, we got everything all set up, and I got the pilot out there. I said, "Okay, sir, here's your plane going up." What they usually do, they go up and they get in, and then we follow them up and make sure they're all, latched in there, everything. But he gets up and then he doesn't get in the plane. He comes back down and he gets right up and he goes, "What in the hell's going on?" I was like, "Sir, I don't, what are you talking about, sir?" He goes, "Go up there and look at that plane." And so I climb up the ladder, and somebody had taken a sticky note just like that and wrote, "Hope you know how to swim, asshole," and stuck it on his radar scope. And so I was like, that wasn't there 10 minutes ago, sir. And he's like, "Well, what do you got to say about it?" I was like, "I guess you probably should have pissed people off if you're counting on there." Sir, and I said, "I'll get you a new plane," because it's actually a pretty big deal, because we have to take that very seriously. We can't let that plane fly.
Obviously, yeah.
So it's fully and there was a huge investigation, and obviously the first finger was pointed at me, and I came out fine. But I just thought it was kind of funny. It's like, if your life depends on us, you might want to treat us with a certain degree of respect, which I always thought was interesting. That that most pilots were pretty good, but we didn't have that problem in the Marine Corps, because in the Marine Corps, the officers had to go out in the middle of nowhere with us with loaded weapons. So again, modicum of respect if you're going to go out in the woods with people with loaded weapons. Just saying. But a total of 10 years in the Marine Corps and the Navy, and quite frankly, if I could go back in time, I'd skipped law school and stayed in the Navy.
Thanks for sharing that story, William. That's good stuff. And again, that's a great thing about Veterans Day, is that it gets people like me that didn't serve asking folks like you to talk about your experience, and it puts things in perspective, right? And so, again, we appreciate you in the service of everybody that served in the military. To a lighter note, Julian Lewis got a crystal ball to Colorado from Tom Loy on 24/7 Sports. William, you and I and Dane Barron got a Juju's Precision Pass Burger at the Sink in Boulder. What was that, about 3 months ago? Something like that?
Yeah, it was before the season, wasn't it, I think?
It's funny because we didn't just go there because I thought Julian Lewis was going to stick with USC, right? I had a pretty good suspicion. Right. And early this fall, I was asked to submit another prediction. And at that point, it was kind of tough to tell with Julian Lewis. And, he reclassified from 26 to the 25 class. And you've got USC and Lincoln Riley going through some struggles right now. Colorado obviously ascending. And then you've got Indiana, which is doing really well, but he did not visit the Hoosiers this past weekend. So I don't know, William, after we get done recording this, I need to make one more phone call. There's a chance by the end of today, I'm going to be submitting a crystal ball prediction with Julian Lewis in favor of Colorado. What do you think that would mean for the Buffs going forward?
Well, I think it. I don't know. I think most of us have kind of felt like this is where it was going to go for quite a while, quite a long time now. But I think, you know, I think a lot of people think of the foregone conclusion that he would be the starting quarterback next year. I'm not sure I would get on that boat. I think we would still want to get a veteran to the transfer portal. But when you sign your high level quarterback, it kind of is a it kind of gives the okay to other 4 and 5 stars to come and join your program, right? Because now you've got the guy. We see this year how important Shedeur Sanders is overall to the offense and to the program as a leader. And so now you've got the guy. All the offensive linemen will know who they're going to block for. All the receivers will know who's going to throw to them, and players want to go play with other players. And they don't want to go to a place as a receiver. They don't want to go to a place that's not going to have somebody to follow Shedeur when he's gone next year. So I think it's huge for recruiting. I think it's huge for the momentum. And I also think that it's a huge punch in the face to all the fools out there to keep saying that Coach Prime's not going to be here next year. Because I think this is a very strong indication that he is going to be here and that he's telling kids, and they know that. And so I think that's another aspect of it that's important at this point too.
You did a film room review of Chauncey Gooden, who is committed to the Buffaloes and could potentially be Colorado's starting right tackle in 2025. Break down kind of your thoughts on that, and we'll get folks to your YouTube channel. We're trying to figure that out. We might put some of that stuff on Buff Stampede's YouTube channel because we want it to get as many views as possible. What was kind of your inspiration there to get up a video of him really
Well,
quickly?
I saw something, some interview article with him or something that I looked at said he had just released his senior year video. We hadn't seen that before. I think I'm going to disagree with you. I think he's almost certainly a guard or a center. I think Carde Smith. I think Carde Smith is the future right tackle for us. The kid from Alabama that we're going to snatch away. You heard it here first from the Trojans. No inside information, just saying. But you look at Chauncey Gooden, and I haven't seen a high school film like that maybe ever. And he's built like and plays like Andre Giroud, who was our unanimous All-American 10 years for the Dallas Cowboys, offensive guard and center back in the early part of the 2000s or late 1990s. I just think that Chauncey Gooden brings everything that he's 6'4", 320, and the first 2 plays on his highlight reel, he's playing running back. And it doesn't really help you interpret how he will play as a lineman, but it shows you his athleticism and how good he is on his feet. And then the last minute or so, I didn't comment on, but it's him playing defensive tackle. And normally I cut that off on offensive linemen because they're not going to play defensive linemen at this level. But I would encourage everybody to watch that through the end. And some of his defensive line play is pretty damned impressive. So what that tells me is that he's got superior athleticism. He's also got some clips on there playing center. He's one of those rare guys who can snap and step at the same time. In fact, there's one clip that I comment on in there where he snaps the ball and almost simultaneously knocks the nose guard head over heels to the side. So he's a guy that's going to play early and well. And it's hard, I think, for the young guys to be big enough and strong enough to play inside at this level. But I think he's a guy that's going to play. He's going to be in the mix early. I don't know if he'll be an early enrollee or not. I think if he's here for winter conditioning and spring ball, then he's certainly in the mix to play next year.
Well, I can't wait to get more of these film room segments up because once the season ends, recruiting is going to pick up big for high school guys, and then before you know it, you're going to be looking at transfer portal recruiting. So,
right.
Yeah, we'll get a lot of these segments up.
In terms, I figured out how to make my video of me commenting as it's playing. So I think kudos to the 60-year-old dinosaur who figured out how to do some of that stuff, and we just did a whiteboard segment, so you'll see that the old school technology, including I got a pointer, is working on this episode. But um, I'll put a link up in the comments to this one to that Chauncey Gooden thing if people want
Okay.
to go look.
Great, great. Well, we got to get more eyeballs on that. There were a lot of eyeballs on Colorado, as there always is this past week out in Lubbock. Shedeur Sanders was named the Big 12 Offensive Player of the Week. Jordan Seaton was named 24/7 Sports True Freshman of the Week. And the start time for CU's final three games in the regular season are now known. We knew that this upcoming game against Utah is going to start at 10 a.m., be televised on Fox. And William, Fox Big Noon Kickoff is coming again to Boulder. And Brian put up there that Colorado has had as many appearances as Ohio State on Big Noon Kickoff in terms of where Ohio State or Colorado is playing, whether it be a home game, road game, in terms of their location. And, it's really put the Big 12 on the map this season, being able to have Fox Big Noon Kickoff go down to UCF and Lubbock and now to Boulder.
Right. I mean, we got twice last year. We were or 2 weeks in a row. We were on
Yep.
one of those shows, and then
Well, Fox Big Noon Kickoff didn't have to move their set, so
right
they
because they're
stayed there. Yeah.
right, and then the one week we were on both shows
Yep.
last week.
For
That
the
ended up being
USC game. Yep.
little premature, but it's not premature this year because they're coming down, and we're moving up in the playoff rankings and everything else. And I don't know, man. I hate to be the guy tempting fate and talking about a team of destiny or whatever, but man, the dominoes keep falling for us off the outside of obviously we're taking care of business, but you know, the teams losing that need to lose for us to keep moving up. And somebody pointed out on our board yesterday, and I had never thought of this before because it had never been true until now. We went out, we're national champs, period. No questions asked. If we win the rest of our games, I think we're
Yep.
we're national champs because that means you win you get in the playoffs. If we're the conference champion, if we win the conference championship game, if we get into that, we win that. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's the beautiful thing about controlling your own destiny, right? Which is where Colorado sits currently. We went to the Hungry Toad in Boulder, and we'll talk about that when we share our experience at our wonderful sponsor. There was the Iowa State game going on one TV. There was a Kansas State game going on another TV. And as a Colorado fan, at that point during the bye week, you're paying close attention, and it was important because with those teams losing and Iowa State losing again this past weekend, now all of a sudden you have that where all you have to do is just show up to the next
Right,
game, win the football game. Easier said than done,
right.
obviously, but that is where Colorado finds themselves, which is where you want to be going into the second week or your second game in November.
Well, one of the things they said, and I'm going to have to step away, pick some up off the other table, but one of the things they said on the game broadcast that caught my attention and segued into a comment that Coach Prime made in his post game was they said, with each game now, it gets a little more pressure, right? Each week that you keep winning, it's good and it's great, but it also means each next game is a little bit bigger. And as you go down, you get to 10 wins. Now you're in the championship game. You win that. Now you're in the playoffs, and each one means a little bit more. And then somebody, when you all were talking to Coach Prime after the game, asked him about that increasing pressure. And he made a comment that I will hope we get back to later on when we talk about some other stuff in this week's game. But like, I don't know. We don't really feel like that as pressure. I mean, every week I look at the phone and the computer, and it's a new crap story that some idiot's writing about this team, and so we feel like it's us against the world anyway. So we're going to go out every week and take care of our business. And I just thought that was a very interesting comment from him. How the team is kind of coming together as a team. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about the atmosphere down in Texas Tech. You were there, I was not, but one of the things that stood out to me, and again, TV commentators mentioned it at the time, was those fans were all the stuff they were doing. I think it was Brock Heward said, you're not really helping your team. In fact, I think you're firing up the other team. And it was very clear at that moment. I don't know if it was clear from being there, but it was clear watching it on TV that our defense was feeding off of that. And
Mhm.
those fans acting the way they did were firing up our defense to even greater feats. And it was really interesting to watch. And I think I got off on a tangent there.
We love the tangents. You got to go get something off the table, you said?
Yeah, just real quick.
All right. Today's episode is brought to us by Macaulay Capital Fractional CFO Services. Is your business looking for financial guidance and support, but not yet big enough to hire a full-time CFO? Well, we have a solution for you. Hiring a fractional CFO who can work with your business on a part-time basis. You get the benefit of having a seasoned financial expert on your team without the commitment or expense of a full-time hire. And here's the best part. It's likely that a partnership with Macaulay Capital will be a win-win situation, meaning that your business will make more money from the guidance of a fractional CFO than the total cost of partnering with us. For more information or to set up a meeting, please visit MacaulayCapital.com. That's MCCAULEY Capital.com. We're also sponsored by the Hungry Toad in Boulder, and William and I both got a chance to go hang out at our new sponsor during the bye week, and it was a great experience, William. I got to tell you, if I'm ever jonesing for French onion soup, I know right where I'm going. That is maybe the best French onion soup I've ever gotten. We got a chance to sample their chicken wings. They were excellent. The nachos were great. What else? We got the fish and chips and shepherd's pie. We really we got some great hospitality there at the Hungry Toad.
Yeah, the only downside is we stuffed ourselves so much we didn't have any room left for dessert. So, but they were super friendly and everybody was very helpful and coming over and talking to us and getting everything we needed, and had some really good beers there. They had some interesting beers that I hadn't had. I think they're from England or what have you. But so the food was excellent and the service was great, and it's a nice it's like a cozy little place, And
Yeah.
I was trying to pry a sign off out of the owner from off the bathroom wall that I want for my collection, but he said maybe someday.
The Hungry Toad is located at 2543 Broadway in Boulder, just north of Pearl Street. They're on Broadway, and yeah, I can't recommend it enough. Even if they're not a sponsor for us long term, like I'm still going back there many times based on our experience there, because especially that French onion soup, I'm telling you, it was like a quarter pound of cheese on that thing. It was pretty fantastic.
Yeah, and the shepherd's pie. I don't know if you're, most often the shepherd's pie in the United States is made with ground beef, but they made it with ground lamb. Really, really, very excellent.
Definitely fish and chips too. I mean, the fish was top notch there. So excited to have them again as a sponsor. I mentioned that the final 3 start times for CU's games in the regular season are now known. After this weekend against Utah at 10 a.m. on Fox, they will play at Kansas in Kansas City. So versus Kansas, I guess, in Kansas City. That's going to start at 1:30 p.m. Mountain Time on Fox. That it will be the 6th game on Fox this regular season. And then Friday, November 29th at home against Oklahoma State, 10 a.m. on ABC. So, William, we don't have to stay up till, I don't know what time you go to bed when they have one of those late Big 12 start times. For me, it's usually between 5 and 6 a.m. And so when I get these emails that announce the start time, every time there is a day game announcement, I do a little dance wherever I am.
Yeah, and especially when it's a home game, and then we can get this done on Sunday and get it up.
Yeah, no, that helps too. Yeah, and people always appreciate getting William Gardner's thoughts a little bit earlier as well. So let's dive into this game out in Lubbock. It was a good environment down there. I thought it was tough getting there, but once I got there, it was a good environment until kickoff, and then things kind of turned ugly in the environment there, and it was way over the top. It's one thing to throw tortillas. It's another thing to start bombarding the visitors bench with things like Zin cans hitting people and batteries and other things that were going down there. There was a point in this game, William, where there were like hard things stuffed in tortillas, so it kind of be a little bit camouflage going down there, so like that person wouldn't get ejected or whatever. Water bottles. Um, I'm all for fun, but that was based on talking to everybody that was down on the field throughout the game. I went down with about 8 minutes left. I was in the press box before that. Uh, it was not safe to be down there on Colorado sideline, and that's not fair to the visiting team.
And nobody did anything about it except for their head coach Joey McGuire, who finally got on the PA system and said, "Look, knock it off." And then they made an announcement, which I've 40 years around college football never heard this. They're going to throw out entire sections of people, and I think it started to stop at that point. But there really wasn't any reason for it. There's no long-term hate between CU and Colorado, or between CU and Texas Tech. So this all got built up over the course of the week, I think by some false things that were said. And quite frankly, it just goes back to what we've been saying for a year and a half. Look, from what I'm told, there was overt racism being, the things that were being yelled at our players. And it doesn't make any sense to me because their team makeup is the same as ours. With one significant difference. We have a black head coach. And so all of a sudden we're a team of thugs to these racist people. So, yeah, and I said it, but I don't understand it because there wasn't, it's Colorado, Nebraska, man, that goes back 20, 30 years. Okay, I get that. I understand that. Even Oregon to some extent, but this hatred of Coach Prime and his family is nuts and it's crazy and it's poisonous and it's vicious and I don't get it. I made a mistake of looking at some comments of some Twitter stuff, which I promised myself never to do. But, like people saying the Sanders family is thugs and our team is thugs. And you know what? You're a racist if you say that. Pure and simple. And I'm looking you right in the eye. If you're the person that said that, this is a team full of young men who have the highest GPA in the history of the program. They don't get in trouble off the field. They help people off the field. And yeah, we go down there and play them in a game, and all of a sudden we're somehow these awful, horrible bad guys. And less than 2 years removed. And I guess I would also see it too. If we're Alabama and we're kicking the crap out of everybody for the last 20 years, I guess I'd see that. 2 years ago, we shouldn't even had a football team on the field. We were so bad. So I don't know. The only reason I can see for this kind of hate building up this fast is we got a black head coach and they don't like it. And that's West Texas. And I guess that's just how it is down there, so, you good old boys, that may be okay for how you all live down there, but it wasn't a good look on national TV as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. I watched the TV broadcast. I can tell you it didn't come close to picturing the scene in terms of stuff flying down towards CU sideline. And again, I love that you can go to a place in college football and they've got this tradition. Obviously, CU, we've got Ralphie that runs before games. And so folks that come from other places that haven't seen a live Buffalo run on a football field before are just taken aback. And I wanted to enjoy the tortilla thing. I think that's kind of cool.
Right.
Until you actually see what it can lead to because you're allowing people to start throwing things on the field. And then you go, well, this is just not safe. And I mean, what's to stop every other college football team from doing something crazy like this? I know Texas got penalized in a football game earlier this year for stuff getting thrown on the field. And so you got to have some rules here that are in place. And again, but I hate that because I wanted to like that. It just was not safe the way that it kind of unfolded last Saturday.
Yeah, and it's just odd to me. And I mentioned to somebody on the board, I guess that's just Texas because the only two places I've heard that coming out of are you mentioned it about at TCU last year and now in Lubbock with Texas Tech. Because back in the day, We were Big 8, we were Big 12. I've been to games in Norman, I've been to games in Lincoln, I've been to games in Austin, and I've been to games in all these places, Kansas State. I have never seen anything like that happen before. And I've seen fans having words in the stands, but that's what happens, too much liquor, too much testosterone, whatever. But I have never seen anything like what has been described to me from people who were there, who I trust their version of events. It just kind of got crazy, and quite frankly, I don't think, as Brock Heward said, I don't think it helped their team one bit, because I think our defense fed off of that, and you could see it happening.
Prime said that it turns us on. I love
Yeah,
that comment because that's what you have. That's the approach you have to have. If you're Colorado, viewed the way for what, like you broke down the reasons you think that there's this hate towards Colorado, and I don't disagree with you. I think there is some other stuff there. There might be some jealousy with some folks, just in terms of the attention that Colorado gets on a lot of the national shows. So I don't think it's 100% racism. I think there's some of that for sure. And I think there's some other things that create the other team to really ramp up their hostility towards Colorado when they come into their stadium. As Shador Sanders said back at Big 12 Media Days, that we're going to be everybody's Super Bowl. And some people like scoffed at that. And it's like, then you're not paying attention if you don't understand the fact that that is absolutely 100% the case, and it is played out that way. And you've had Fox Big Noon kickoff at these places on the road, and that's awesome because it generates energy on UCF's campus, and it generated campus energy on Texas Tech's campus. I was there early in the morning doing a TV spot, and you could just see a buzz. And I talked to a few fans that came up, and they said, "We just haven't had this type of excitement for a game." So that's all great, but handle yourself with a little bit more class. And we just have not seen that on the road with the Buffs this year. So if that's the case, your mentality as a football program should be to feed off it. And it's cool that they have done really well in these road games. I think it's 1989 is the last time they've won four straight road games by 14 plus points, 14 or more points. So they are shutting those people up.
that's a crazy stat. I was actually there for that season. Man, that really takes me back. And I was going to say, um, that was the season we first went undefeated under Coach McCartney, and we were, and I guess the reason why it's so mystifying to me now is that, back then we had an undefeated season, and it wasn't until the year after that we really started to get the hate and the anger. It's like some people just seem to get angry if you start to have success. It's like you're supposed to suck, and now you're good, and it pisses me off, and I don't really understand that. But then, Coach Mack used to push that just like Coach Brown was like, look, you know what? We're going to go into their stadium and make it our house, and we don't care what they do. We're gonna play our game, and the more they yell at us, the harder we're going to play. And so that's a good coaching and good leadership, and you know, I think it helps more on defense. I think on offense you kind of got to control it a little bit. On defense, man, you just take the chains off and let's get after, release the crack, and let's go knock some heads off. And we're going to get into that because, man, as who was it, Keith Jackson said, head knocking going on.
Yeah, I mean, Arden Walker played maybe his best game as a Buff. He had another game earlier this season where he had a big impact. I'm blanking on what game
Yeah.
that was right now. And then Amari McNeil, I think defensively, like those two guys probably
Yeah.
deserve the game balls for this, right?
Well, if Amari McNeil's not the defensive player of the week in this conference, I'd like to see who the guy who was, because
He's not. I can pull it up, but yeah, he
it,
was not.
that's a travesty, and I think it goes to the fact that they're not going to reward a defensive lineman unless he has 15 sacks. But Amari McNeil was second on the team in total tackles. He was first by a long margin in assisted tackles. He was second in sacks, and that doesn't even mention a couple of plays where he broke through the line. And one of the reasons why we held their Taj Brooks more or less in check is that we made him change his direction behind the line of scrimmage, so he couldn't get up ahead of steam. And several of those times happened because of Amari McNeil. Now, I think it's too much to ask that a 300-pound guy, stop on a dime when Taj Brooks, maybe the best running back in the country this year, changes directions and tackle him in the backfield. But the fact that he broke through the line and made those plays happen is testament. And he was unblockable. I mean, he was dominant. And for the second game in a row, he's the reason why we got a fourth down stop by beating his block. So I can't say enough about Amari McNeil and how he played in that game. And then, block bully, I guess I always have to mention Wankwell, and he's never going to get noticed because he doesn't make the plays, but they couldn't move him an inch. If they had a bulldozer, they couldn't move that guy. And I was watching, and one of the reasons why Amari was able to do some things he was able to do is because they got a double team Choje, and they can't double team two guys up on the front line. Otherwise you're not blocking any linebackers. So we, as a defense in our front seven, are starting to cause real blocking issues for teams because you're gonna double Choje, or no, you're not. And then he's gonna blow you up if you're not gonna double. And this is without Shane Koch's plan.
Yeah.
Without Dayon Hayes playing, and a couple things that the TV announcers kept talking about. Two things, like that edge group is just so good. And I'm not even talking about 7 sacks. I'm talking about you can't run the ball against us because our edge guys are so good that you can't get on the outside of us. And then, I guess we'll flip over to offense at some point. Talk about the screen.
Yeah, real quick. Let's stick with the defensive front because the hardest I laughed on Saturday was when I saw the video. I don't know if you've seen this, William, of Warren Sapp. He was pregame just walking around kicking over the pylons on Texas Tech's end. And he later said that he was marking his territory. And if you haven't seen it, let me know because I'm going to send this to you over text. This video is hilarious. And I remember when Warren Sapp was hired at Colorado and he was interviewed by Neely. He said that he wants to be a group of mongrels that come into your town and leave with a cape to tell the story. And I just like I get there has to be like a line, and maybe I'm a hypocrite for talking about like don't throw tortillas and then you can allow a guy to kick over pylons. But to me, there's a line that he didn't cross there that was hilarious to me.
But the thing about that is you're out there by yourself doing it. It's not like they're out there and you're walking through their team and getting in the face of their players or taking the pylon and throwing it at players or whatever.
No,
Didn't be by yourself down in that end zone. And Warren Sapp is Warren Sapp, man. He ain't been different in 30 years, and you see him on the sidelines. And he's got that same game face that he had when he was the best defensive tackle in the NFL, right? Because that's the only way he knows, man. And that's what he's teaching these guys is, and when they come off the field, he's there. I saw him. I think he had. Sammy Okunlola, and he was telling him, he's showing him do this, you got to do this, and he's just over there coaching, and he's over there when BJ Green came off after one of his sacks, and he's smacking him on the head and hugging him and just all that sort of stuff. And you can't overstate the importance of that to players, because this is a hero of theirs, and like I'll tell one story. My kid that I used to coach in North Carolina that ended up playing at Princeton. I remember taking him when he came out the first summer I was out here and worked with my players out here, and he said, "Coach, those my high school players," I said, "they all follow me around." I'm like, Mike, you know how when I took you to the Bronco camp, and I took him to Bronco camp during the summer one day, and all those Trevor Price and all those guys were, "Come on, big man, Rook, push those sled," and all that kind of stuff. And I said, remember how when those NFL guys were talking to you and you were like, "Oh my God, they're the NFL guys." That's what you are to these high school kids, man. You're a hero to these people. And so when you look at those, I guess my point that I'm getting at finally is that those defensive linemen on our team, those edge players, Warren Sapp is beyond godlike to these guys. This is maybe arguably one of the best defensive tackles in the history of the game, and he's here teaching them, invested in their lives. And that's what leadership really is to inspire people to go beyond their own self-imposed limits and find new limits. So, when we see 7 sacks against Texas Tech, man, and man, it's a good thing that game didn't go on another quarter. That poor quarterback might got killed because he would. And I mean, they were not like, oh, I knocked you down. They were semi truck hitting a Volkswagen sacks. Some of those hits,
Yeah.
and it was it was awe inspiring, frankly, to watch it.
And obviously, Damian Lewis and Vincent Dancy
Yes,
deserve a lot of credit for the
yeah,
work they've done with that group as well. Sapp is just a big name, and he's a big character that's kicking over
right,
pylon. So that's why
right,
I brought him up. But
yeah,
that
and
that
this,
that threesome of coaches has been very cohesive, very fantastic this season.
yeah, and one of the things they talked about on the broadcast was that the coaching staff Coach Prime brought in has so much NFL background. They talked about. They said in the NFL you adjust, okay, because you got to make changes to get your athletes in position to do what they can do, right? You're not going to out athlete anybody in the NFL, but you could put your guys in positions to be better at what they do, and so you look at the NFL experience and on that defense, there's no place better to look than, you know, um, Coach Lewis and Coach Sapp and Coach Dancy and their NFL background and pedigrees and what they're teaching these guys. And, when you're a guy in college and you want to make it up to the next level, I know that Coach Lewis and Coach Sapp ain't talking crap to me because they did it. Right.
Mhm.
And so the the other thing that's exciting to me about the defense in this game was in that first quarter we were getting whooped, right? And then Coach Livingston, okay, they're picking us, and now we handled it 2 different ways. Coach Prime went and got in the face of the ref and said enough's enough, but then Coach Livingston said we're just go to zone, you can't pick a zone. So we made changes and we beat what they were doing, both in terms of our coaching and in terms of our players. And when we went into halftime down 13-10, it was over. It was over. Ain't no team that we've played yet beat us in the second half. Nobody. So when we're only down 13-10 going into halftime, that game is done to me. And I never had a doubt about it the rest of the way out. Even when they got the ball back, and they had closed it down to 7, I knew if I had $100,000 to call Vegas and bet, I would have bet right at that moment. We were not going to lose that game because nobody beats us in the second half.
Yeah, I that goes to something I wanted to ask you. I was going to ask you your thoughts when Colorado was down 13-0 early on because there there was no real overreaction from my end because I was thinking they're going to take their best shot, and this is what Colorado is going to look like out of a bye week. You just got to survive this first quarter because for whatever reason, it seems like there's a rhythm that needs to take place with this team, and it's not necessarily reset every week. It's just the beginning of the season we saw a little bit of that slow start. After the first bye week, we saw a little bit of that. And my thought was just get through this first quarter without getting blown out, and you're going to be
Right.
fine. And so, yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of panic in my mind, but it certainly was not. If you hadn't seen the consistency come together the 2 weeks prior to the bye week, maybe there would have been more concern. But I feel like this team has kind of shown its colors, and as much as you'd like them to go out and play a full 60-minute game, um, outside of that UCF game, you're just going to have to deal with the fact that they keep winning games and most of them by a decent enough margin where you're not sweating it out too much. There was a nerve-wracking moment, obviously, late in this game. Early in the game, they didn't have the success you wanted, but I have a faith in this Colorado team that I have not had in a very long time.
Well, and it goes in both directions on both sides of the ball because there's a couple of things that this is not my opinion. These are bona fide facts. Okay, and we've played 9 games now, and only Nebraska has held us under 28. We're going to score 28 against anybody we play. We know that, and the only reason we didn't score against Nebraska because it was week 2 and we didn't have our line ready and all of our plays going or whatever. So, I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, well, we're going to get to 30 points, so that's a given. Not even a doubt in my mind. But secondly, they had 13 points on multiple times down the field, and we stopped them for field goals
Mhm.
on two of those, right? I mean, you're going to get field goals from us, you're going to lose. Just that simple. And the TV announcers were saying the same thing. You can't settle for field goals against this team because we got too many weapons. Okay, sooner or later, LeJohntay West are going to get loose. Sooner or later, Travis Hunter going to get loose. Sooner or later, Will Shepherd going to get loose. Right, and so I know we're going to get to 30 on offense, and I know they're not going to get to 30 on their offense. And you were looking at the problems we had on our offense, and it was very clear what was happening. And so, Shermer and well, I'm sorry, going the other direction on their offense. It was very clear what was happening, and it was very clear to me that Livingston was going to solve that. The big concern for them was always going to be Taj Brooks, and we were beating the hell out of him. I mean, we were brutalizing that kid. Not a kid, I guess he's a grown ass man now, but um, we were brutalizing him in that first half. And so there was no question in my mind that he was going to all of a sudden explode and break loose on us, because that's not what was going on in that game. They got a couple of plays where they got some big gashers. Um, Gashers for all the old timey CU fans who remember Coach what's his face, but
Hawkins.
Hawkins, yeah. But it was very clear that they weren't consistently moving down the field. There wasn't a thing going on where, like sometimes a team, they're going to hit that 5 yard, they're going to hit that 5 yard, they're going to hit that 5 yard, and you start to get demoralized because Jesus, we can't stop the damn thing, right? That wasn't happening. They had a couple of long plays. We're going to fix that. We're going to shut them down. And in the meantime, between those plays, we were knocking the snot out of them. And then on offense, you just knew sooner or later that Shador was going to connect. And I think what stands out to me, I watched the game again. There was a lack of the timing was not there with Shador and his receivers. Some of his passes were uncharacteristically not right on the money, a little bit high, a little bit away outside, whatever. He didn't have that accuracy that he has most weeks, but you still knew sooner or later. And then when they started to get together in the second half, there was a point where we just started running quick screens, tunnel
Mhm.
screens on the outsides. And there was a point after, I think that the last touchdown maybe, where Brock Hewitt said, this team is lethal on screens, or something to that effect. This team is lethal on screens.
And that's because they were blocking really well downfield. Like you
Yeah,
saw on that LeJohntay Wester touchdown early in the game where he showed incredible balance. Travis Hunter had a block that
right.
sprung him for that. And then later in the game, you had LeJohntay Wester as part of the group that was springing Travis
Exactly.
Hunter for a screen touchdown, and you had Jordan Seaton and Cash
Well,
Cleveland consistently downfield.
that's what I want to get at, because this is something new this week, and this is something that we keep seeing every single week. There's something new with this team on offense or defense, and that was very clearly a new wrinkle that they put in with Jordan Seaton to get him downfield. And you know why they did that? Because the kid can run. Okay. And he started to settle into his role. And so Shermer's starting to look at it and go, and the coach is talking, and he'll get Load Holt and say, look, if we do this and we ask him to do that, can he do that? And Load Holt, I think, is finally comfortable with saying, that Jordan Seaton can do any damn thing you ask him to do. Okay, and you can't say that early on in the season. You get 8 or 9 games under your belt. Now you start to look at Jordan Seaton. He had his best game by far, and he has settled down as a veteran. And it wasn't just on those screens, but they're sending him out there on those screens and asking him to block linebackers and safeties and stuff. That are very athletic guys, and he did a damn good job of it. And on that triple option, for Shadur's rushing touchdown, they sent him right at that middle linebacker and said, take that guy out, and he did it. So this was a new wrinkle that we've seen from Jordan Seaton, of running him downfield and putting him in mismatches. And when you have an offensive tackle who can do that, now you got things you can do to exploit it, man. Because most teams got to have him stay in, block this guy or that guy. If you can run that guy downfield, um, it's a very exciting development, and I really think it speaks to Jordan Seaton's development as a player, and the fact that our coaching staff understands as our players develop how to use them more effectively as they get better as players. And while I'm on the subject of coaching staff, how about if I had a hat on, I'd take my hat off and I'd tip it to Phil Loadholt, because son of a bitch, man, he got two. We basically started two true freshmen. I know we didn't start Cash Cleveland, but we played them after the first series. And with two true freshmen on that offensive line, we kicked their backside. Okay. That is a testament to Phil Loadholt having those guys ready. Now, I don't know what's going on up in the head of Hank Zelinskas, and I still maintain that aside from those early snaps, he's a fantastic center. But I fully agree with pulling him, because as an offensive line coach, one of the most dangerous things you can have is those early snaps, because not only will they get you a turnover, but they'll get Shedeur hurt because everybody diving for the ball and all that kind of stuff. I can't trust you to play, man, if you keep having early snaps as the offensive line coach. I can't trust you to play no matter how damn good you are until you get that fixed. Now, when do you get the confidence back in him? I don't know how you get that confidence back without playing him, and I don't know how you play him without getting the confidence back. So you got a little bit of a catch-22 in that situation. But they're going to keep working on it, and I know they're not going to give up on Hank, and I know Hank ain't going to give up on Hank either. And so the good side of it is we got two good centers. If Hank can figure out that early snap thing, and I can't tell you how impressed I was with Cash Cleveland. I mean, he was right there in the middle of it. He got beat a couple times because that nose guard was good, and he was a fifth-year senior, and he's 320. But for the most part, Cash handled the dude and handled his business. And there was times when there was an interesting dynamic that was new this time too, where Shedeur would come up and he would check with Jordan Seaton and he would check with Cash Cleveland. And I don't know what was exactly going on there, except there was communication. And then, Jordan would make a call and Hank would acknowledge it, or Cleveland would acknowledge it, and Jordan would point out a guy, and then they go and run the play. And more often than not, it worked. Now, that kind of communication between a quarterback and an offensive line is critical. And that says very good things about this offense.
That botch snap early in the game where the snap came when Shedeur was not expecting it. There was kind of a weird dynamic between Shedeur and Isaiah Augusta, but it was impressive to see Isaiah Augusta kind of figured out in the moment that he just needed to take out the defender to allow Shedeur to be able to recover that fumble. I continue, and I know I'm preaching to the choir here, William. I am continuing to be a very big fan of Isaiah Augusta, and he had some nice blitz pickups on Saturday as well. And I don't know if this will be a controversial take or not, but I'm still waiting for Dallin Hayden to make a guy miss. It seems like Isaiah Augusta is just maximizing every carry, and not every one of them is going for a big gain, but it's like you can see the way the play develops, that based on where the contact comes and what's going on, that he's getting that extra couple yards, and Dallin is just not able to do that. And Augusta is doing that, and Dallin Hayden, when he got the parting of the Red Seas in that UCF game, showed his burst, and he's got a lot of athleticism. You can see that for that touchdown run he had against the Golden Knights. And I know that he's going to go out against Utah and prove me wrong here. To this point of the season now, what are we, 9 games in? He just isn't, when there's those one-on-one battles in the open field, he is just not winning those.
Well, to that point, as soon as you said it, I was like, because there's a point in the game where he caught a pass about 5 yards downfield, and somebody, kind of grazed him, is what I would put it. He wasn't a solid hit, and he fell over. And I remember at that moment thinking, I might have even said it out loud, Dallin Hayden fall over in a stiff breeze, for Christ's sakes, man. And then later on in the game, late in the fourth quarter when we were running the ball, we had Isaiah Augustov in there, and we run a counter and we get 5 yards on it. Just do that 9 more times, man. They can't stop it. But then we do it with Dallin Hayden, and he doesn't get those 5 yards. And so I don't know why we're handing the ball off to him. If we're going to hand the ball off 20 times, all 20 of them ought to go to Isaiah Augusta, because, more often than not, he's going to make 3, 4, 5 yards, and every now and then he's going to get 10, So I don't know. I just, had that exact same frustration watching Dallin Hayden play on Saturday in this game. And I was just like, could we get the big guy back in there and let him run the damn ball the way he does?
But I'm now predicting Dallin Hayden to have a breakout game against Utah.
Yeah.
That's hopefully that's what this little rant here provides. Any other takeaways, William, before we close out here? Travis
Well, we
Hunter
have,
was not targeted once in this game outside of that offsides play where obviously Texas Tech knew that it was a free play and they threw it down. That was maybe top five most impressive picks that we've
yeah.
seen from Travis Hunter, but it obviously didn't count.
Yeah, and of course his touchdown play was fantastic. And I don't know if
Yeah.
are we close to the end, or I got lots of things still to talk about. But one thing, and I'm gonna try and reenact this is what am I? What am I? I'm pouring water all over myself. What I am. But how, how about Nakai Hill Green catching that
Oh
interception?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
How stupid was that? Oh my God!
Yeah, no, even the camera was like going downfield and had to catch up to the action there. And you could just see Texas Tech's offense just kind of shaking their head as they went off the field after that
Yeah,
because
that
you
quarterback just didn't
yeah.
look at, oh man, nobody can make that catch. So that and I thought in addition to that play, um, um, Bentley led the team in tackles with 10,
Mhm.
and the guy Hill Green was tied for second with Amari McNeil with 9. And I thought that Nakai Hill Green again played at an NFL All-American at an All-American level in this game, and I'm glad that it was in the middle of the day and people got to see it, and that interception will hopefully get him more notice because he is consistently playing at an NFL level, and quite frankly, Levante Bentley is too, but he doesn't get noticed quite as much because everybody sees Nakai Hill Green do it more often. But I have not seen two inside linebackers play that well together for CU since the 90s. Um, and I'm trying to think back to when's the last time we had a really good pair of inside linebackers.
It's been a while. You've had a lot of guys come through that have been really good, like Nate Landman, Jordan Dizon's another one that comes to mind. But
Everybody
yeah,
else,
you haven't had a pair, I don't think, that have been as trustworthy as Bentley and Hill Green in a very long time.
yeah, and you go back into the 90s, we had that all the time, with some of those guys. But this pair right now, and I think it's also a tribute to the defensive line and how well they're playing, because they're beating up the offensive line so much that these guys are allowed to just do their job as linebackers. They don't got to fight off blocks and such. Um, but their instincts, both of those guys, they see and they go, and they're very well coached. One of the things I was thinking about, you mentioned Gustav taking out that defensive player on that bad snap, and that made me think this is a very well coached team in a very different aspect as well. This is something we haven't seen at CU in a long time. This team understands football, and it understands situations, and it understands when this happens, I have to do this. Okay, I got to get that first down yardage. When there's a bad snap, I got to stop that other guy from getting the ball and let the other guy. I'll trust the other guy to get the ball. And they understand situations, and they understand the little things you got to do in the middle of a football game to win a football game, in certain given situations. And so they're being taught, and I don't think a lot of people fully understand this, is that you have to understand the game as a player. And now, especially when we're talking about 8, 9, 10 wins, teams that win those kinds of games make those little plays. Okay. They have a running back who takes out the defender and let the quarterback recover the fumble. They, you know, get guys who get that extra half a yard to get that first down and know where the ball is. They like Travis Hunter caught a pass late in the game, and he's running towards the sideline, and I bet you 10 out of the last 12, 14 years, our player would have run out of bounds and let the clock stop, right? Travis Hunter let somebody tackle him inside and keep the clock running. Okay. Now people may think, well, that's no big deal. It's a big damn deal when you don't do it. right? And we've watched too many CU players over the last 20 years not do it because their coaches didn't teach them situational football. And this coaching staff is teaching these guys everything.
I love it. Let's run through our notes. We're at 6:09. I got my family depending on me for dinner here. But I got one more
Well,
question I'm going to throw back to you. Let me
send kids out
run
and
through
make
some.
them hunt a rabbit and something, and got to
That's
learn to fence.
uh okay. Well, I want to get into the officiating real quick, the kickoffs. Okay, yeah, I've got a few questions. I got three more questions, and then I'm going to let you go through your notes. First off, should CU start kicking the ball out of bounds? They've now had five guys kicking off. They have not found that consistency kicking it into the end zone. Obviously, do they hold tryouts on campus at this point, this late in the season? What would you like to see out of that going forward? And by the way, I will say that Ben Finiseth and Brendan Gant continue to be really fun to watch on special teams coverage units.
Yeah, Ben Finiseth planted that one kid, man. Holy crap!
Yeah.
Guy was coming forward, hit him and put him backwards like this, and so that was a lot of. And I'm gonna tell you this: this is a coaching problem, and they need to, and they did it once before, and I think they got slack on it in the off week. But I think kickoff returns have only really hurt us a couple of times in two different games this year now that I think back on, and even in this game, there was one time we kicked off down deep into the corner and the guy bobbled it and they wound up with the ball like the 5 or the 10-yard line. So I think better coverage, and I think they'll address that. And I don't think we'll see this problem again next week um, because the last time it happened, they addressed it. We didn't see it the next week either. But uh, I don't think you got to kick it into the end zone or out of the end zone to be effective on kickoff coverage. And do we hold a tryout? I don't know if they got time. I guess there's no harm in it, but I don't know how you do the logistics of that. And, you know, again, how do you, I don't know, advertise? Everybody get your dumb ass down into Folsom Field, kick a football. And again, if you got the time for it and it doesn't detract from something else that's important, I guess why not go ahead? But I wouldn't kick it out of bounds. I'd get the damn coverage. Now, when I ran kickoff coverage, every team I ever coached, I was a kickoff coverage coach, and we always kicked it into the corner because why kick it off to the middle of the field and let the guy pick where the field is? I'm gonna kick it down to one of the corners and start him off in a corner. And now the only direction he's got to come is here, and we only have to defend half the field. Okay. So I would like to kick it into the corner, but I'm not going to just concede 35 every time we kick the ball off. I don't even know if
Okay.
that's what I'll tell you anymore. I wouldn't do that. I'd bust. To quote Denzel Washington in Remember the Titans, I'd break my foot off in someone with John Brown hind parts and make them cover the damn ball because
They've
kickoff
they've
coverage.
got they've got some dogs on that coverage unit.
Yeah,
So we'll check
and
back in on that next week. Officiating, how did that come off on TV? Because in person, watching the spotting, in no way do I feel the officials decided ultimately the final score of this football game. There were just bad calls all around. There was
yeah,
just a lack of consistency, and they really never got control of this football game. And I don't know if that came across properly on TV. And Coach Prime has a very laid back and engaging demeanor with officials.
yeah.
That got him, but before the fourth quarter, uh, to express himself. I guess I'll put it that way, because an official said something he found disrespectful, and frankly, the way they officiated that game was just disrespectful to a game of college football.
Yeah, and I don't think it. I don't know. I mean, quite frankly, I think we benefited more than we paid for it. I think they were uniformly bad in both directions. But like there's the one play where they called targeting on Amari McNeil, um, and they rightfully withdrew that call, but we clearly face masked the guy and they missed it. So
Yeah.
um, there and then I don't know that the roughing the passer on Shador. I don't know. I tend to think it was a little bit late to hit, but they called it, and that's the way it goes. And I understand how Texas Tech might see that in a very different way, but I just thought it was uniformly bad officiating all the way across. They had a bad day. I don't know. They can't see everything, and
It is and I don't like to bring up officiating because I did that both in basketball and football when I was in college, and it is so tough. And you've got
Yeah,
people screaming at you the whole time, and so I only bring that up when it's like when I find it to be egregiously bad, and actually to the kind of I felt like at times, especially late in that third quarter, early fourth quarter, that it was starting to get dangerous the way that they
yeah,
were officiating that football game.
and the TV commentators commented on that too. Uh, that there was one play where Brooks ran up the middle and uh, our defensive line, I can't remember our huge defensive tackle, they pushed him back and then they kind of shoved him at the end. And maybe they should have called a penalty there to kind of get some control over it. But I thought that particularly the holding on offense was particularly it was not uniform. It's like so if you're going to call it one way, call it one way. But they were back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And quite frankly, on Shador's touchdown, you could have called holding on Seaton, and they didn't, and that's fine. Um, but then other times they were calling stuff like Cash Cleveland's holding was kind of stupid.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, shouldn't
He
be.
he definitely did not agree with that call.
No, well, and I loved that they were. I don't know if you watched the TV broadcast and
I
listened to the
did,
sound.
yeah.
They were like, they need to have a Cash Cleveland show because everybody's going to tune into that. But he's got such an expressive face. Looks like a little baby Pillsbury Doughboy guy out there. He's kind of cute, But he's a damn good player. But I just thought the officiating was uniformly bad, and I don't know that it hurt us in any way. It
Any
just
final thoughts from your end? Do you want to run through
um,
your notes real quick?
No, I mean, the only other thing I want to talk about is like somebody on our board posted up about what are we going to do about Utah's pass rush this week, and I thought, what what the hell are Utah? What is Utah going to do about our pass rush, pal? 7 sacks in this last game, 29 sacks in the season. We're the best damn pass rushing team in the country. Utah needs to worry about what they're going to do about our pass rush. I don't give a damn about theirs because we're going to score 29 or 30 on them regardless of what they do. So I just think people need to, we keep getting guys with multiple sacks, and uh, BJ Green's now leading the team with 5, and he's starting to show up like we expected from the start and be dominant. And I just can't say enough about that edge position. And I guess is it accurate that they're going to try to redshirt Keaton Wade?
He said that he was planning to. I think I'd have to look at it. I think he's played in 4 games now. So if
Because I
you, I'll double check that. I think if you see him out there again, the plan has changed, and maybe the plan has changed because
think he's not a
Deion
senior.
Hayes went in for surgery. Well, no, he's a junior, but if he redshirts, then you get 2 more years of eligibility, and because
But
he was dealing with that injury early this season, you think maybe it would benefit him going forward to limit
right,
him
but
to 4. But it's going to be kind of based.
yeah.
You don't you have depth, but you don't have
Well,
a
with
plethora of
yeah.
depth with Deion Hayes out.
Well, there's two things though. I mean, I think if you're ready to go full time, because I think we got 4 so far in every game. We've had 4 edge guys that have excelled, and so we had that in this game too. If you don't have Keaton Wade, then you got to go with Tajay McCoy. Now, I'm not opposed to that, but I look at Keaton Wade, and man, the dude is starting to come on. Right. I
Yeah.
mean, he was just as impressive as anybody else on that defense last Saturday. And I'm asking myself, can we sit this guy for the next 3 games, 4 games, 6 games? I don't think we can. I think he's become too valuable to the team
Okay.
at this for us to sit him and get him an extra season because he's doing what he wanted to do, which is to be a dominant player, right? Isn't that the point of redshirting? Get older, be more dominant. He's
Yeah.
still got 3 regular season games left. We got a championship game. What I got to go outside now and turn 3 times a spit to appease the gods, but and then we got a bowl game. We got God bless a playoff, and I don't think we can sit the guy. I think he's become too valuable to this defense, but not my decision.
Yeah. He's definitely come on and been a pleasant surprise. I mean, he was making a lot of plays in the opposing backfields at Kentucky last year. We just kind of forgot about him because he was hurt all of preseason camp. But yeah, it's been fun to watch his development. And so, William, this was a great breakdown for the folks that watch this on YouTube. Stay tuned because you're going to have a whiteboard breakdown for us of Shedeur Sanders' rushing touchdown from that Texas Tech game, and going to kind of show us what all went down in terms of making that play successful. Always appreciate you for taking time out. And again, happy Veterans Day.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I always enjoy doing it. Let me know when this is up there, and I'll put that link to the Chauncey Gooden film in the first comments.
Okay, awesome. Sounds good. Thanks, William. I appreciate you as always, and appreciate everybody out there for tuning in. We've got another play breakdown. We're going to have this special for our YouTube audience since it doesn't really translate well to audio. William, take it away. What are we looking at here?
Okay, Adam. So at 11:05 in the third quarter, for anybody that wants to look it up on video and watch it as a football play, Shedeur Sanders scores his rushing touchdown. And I believe, if I remember correctly, it put us up 17-13, but I might be wrong on that. But at any rate, I wanted to illustrate what that play was. It was a run pass option, but frankly, in fact, it's actually a triple option. And for those that don't know what that means, I think I talked once before about when an option play leaves one person unblocked, and then depending on what that person does, you have options of what to do as a quarterback. So in this particular play, I've got the old-fashioned technology working here with the pointer. Okay, for you young people, ask the old people. So what we have here is a 5-man front for CU. We've got Isaiah Augustov is the running back. Shedeur Sanders is the quarterback directly behind center. And then we've got Travis Hunter is over here. And then we've got the wide receivers in double twins. So the way the defense lined up on this is they came with a 4-man front. They got 2 stand-up defensive ends, 2 defensive tackles, and then the middle linebacker is slightly off center to the left of the running back, or basically right over the running back. And then they got a nickel program in here, and then so 2 guys walked up into the middle, sort of split the difference between the tackle and the wide receivers. And so this is a run pass option, and right off the snap, you'll see that Shedeur turns to his left. Isaiah Augustov is going to go right up here, but the first thing to look at is our big left tackle, Jordan Seaton, is immediately just going to crash down, and he's going to go after that middle linebacker right there. Now, if you notice over here, both receivers for us, what they basically do is they kind of just sort of step back half a step and kind of shift a little bit towards the inside. Now, the reason they stay back there is so that Jordan Seaton can go up here and block this guy, but Shedeur Sanders can still throw the ball to them. In a normal passing situation, if the pass is thrown beyond the line of scrimmage, you can't have a blocker downfield. So you keep your wide receivers both back behind the line of scrimmage. And I said it was a triple option, but frankly, it's a quadruple option because both of these guys are available for Shedeur to catch a pass if he wants to throw that. And the guy that we're going to option in this case is that defensive end off to the left side. And if you notice, Jordan Seaton crashes down on that middle linebacker, and then everybody else blocks to their right and blocks everybody down. That whole line is going to collapse down on us. And if you watch this on film, you'll see Shedeur Sanders' eyes is on this guy from the whole time the ball is snapped. And when he goes and makes the fake to Isaiah Augustov, he does a really good job. And this guy buys it completely and comes crashing down here and tries to tackle Augustov right here. Now, as what Shedeur is looking for is that if this guy would have come up the field, and by up the field, I mean up here, then he would have handed the ball off to Augustov. And with all this blocking, all these guys got pushed over here, and there would have been a hole right up there. Okay. So Shedeur, instead of watching this defensive end, and as soon as he crashed down, he pulled the ball back and went directly off the left-hand side here. And with a beautiful block, Jordan Seaton takes care of that middle linebacker. This guy kind of shifts over here because he has to take this seriously. And this guy kind of hangs out in here because he has to take this seriously. And both of these receivers do a block in case Shedeur Sanders wants to throw it. Now, if the reason we went with the run on this one is because we've got these two safeties walked up into these two positions. So you've got 3-on-2 and 3-on-2, which makes the run play more sensible. And Shador would have read this pre-snap and seen these three guys on either side and probably decided to himself, we're going to run the ball in this one. And then he just has to wait for this guy. And it was just like, if you watch that play again, and I'll try to get it up on our board, that defensive end crashes down just like he's taught to do, right hard here. And Bill McCartney used to talk about goal line offense when we were running the wishbone. He said, we just line up the ball and let Darian Hagan make people look stupid. And that is the whole point of the option is you put this guy in a no-win situation. If he goes down here, you do what Shador does. If he comes up here to stop Shador, you hand off to Augustov, and either way, you're probably going to make that touchdown. So I just wanted to explain what the run pass option and the triple option looks like. I think if they'd have walked these guys down here into this area to try to stop the run, then almost certainly Shador would have passed to one of these wide receivers. So there's a pre-snap read and there's a post-snap read. And what that means is you make a decision based on where they are before you snap the ball, and then you make a decision based on what this guy does after you snap the ball. So does that make sense?
Absolutely. That's a great breakdown, William. We
Okay.
appreciate you for giving us a closer look at what all happened on that play.
All right. Thank you.